The next one, the next topic is in auction is the seller revenue auction comparison. So this is to compare the different type of auctions. In a private values case, it doesn't matter if we are playing the English ascending auction or the second price auction, or from that point of view, online auction. Why? Because I know my valuation. And the fact that I hear the others raising their bids or getting out of the auction in an English auction doesn't give me any information. I know my valuation and my bid depends on my valuation. So I don't care about your valuation. Okay? I bid according to my valuation, and when I bid, I take into account any of my beliefs about your valuations. But this is only in a private value case where I know exactly the valuation. In a common value case where we compete for a lease of an oil tract in let's say the Mexican Gulf, then I have no idea about the value of that tract. Why? Because for that I need to know how many barrels of oil I can extract from the ground and then multiply by the price that I can get in the market. So that will be the value. But your value is the same, but we don't know the value. So what we do, I go and take an expert and ask that expert, can you estimate how much barrels I can extract from that field? And the second one also does it with their own expert. And third one, and there are a lot of them that compete. So in that case, I hear when all of a sudden, let's say, I think my expert told me that there are only 1 million barrels there, but then I see that other bidders bid higher and higher, I'm learning something. Or if I thought that it's very high, and I see that a lot of the bidders starting getting out of the auction because the price becomes too high for them, then I learn and I should update my belief. Maybe my expert was too optimistic, and therefore I should update my bid itself. In that case, a second price auction or sealed bid that I don't learn anything, and the English auction or online auction are completely different. Because in an open ascending auction, I learn, but I don't need to learn if I know my valuation. When I don't know the valuation, whether you have the same valuation or not, then I may learn from your behavior, update my beliefs, and then change my bid. So now I'm talking about a very general setup where, first of all, I know my valuation, I don't know yours, okay? But it may be that the auctions may be common value auctions, intermediate value, or private value. In case of a private value auctions, then the private value is in the statistically independent valuations. There is a very well-known theorem, it's called the revenue equivalence theorem, that says doesn't matter what auction, it's a first price, second price, third price auction, all of them will yield the seller the same revenue. However, if it's not private value auctions, and there is something that I don't know my valuations for sure, like in the oil tract, I don't know the amount of oil, okay, or that is common, or we all have the same value. But sometimes, even if I don't know the valuation, but namely the number of barrels that I can extract, but I prefer not to go to Alaska to do it, but rather I prefer to do it to lease some tract in the Mexican Gulf. Then I have some private values in addition to unknown values. So this is the intermediate case. Okay, so I'm talking about the very general intermediate case, or whether it is full common value, whether it is private value, whether it is in between. We can compare them. Now I tell you what is the comparison. assuming that, and this is very important assumption, assuming that bidders are risk neutral, together with some other assumptions, it can be shown that for the same number of bidders, okay, in each auction, the English ascending auction outperforms the second price bid, sealed bid auction. So even though for private values, the English ascending auctions gives exactly the same revenue to the seller, in general, not necessarily just private values, but the general case, the English auction outperform, it gives you either the same or more than a second price sealed bid auction. The second price sealed bid auction outperforms the first price sealed bid auction. Namely, again, in a private value case, all of them are the same for the seller. However, in the general case, second price auction is better for the seller than a first price auction. This is under risk neutrality. With risk aversion is different. And the first sealed bid auction is equivalent to the Dutch auction because everything there is equivalent. Okay. However, let me emphasize, everything here under the assumption that we are assuming the same number of bidders. What does it mean? If I compare the English auction with 10 bidders with the second price sealed bid auction with 10 bidders, then the English auction will outperform the second price auction. But this is under the assumption that I put the same number of bidders here and the same number of bidders there. Okay? However, if in the English auction I have only 5 bidders, then the seller may not make as much as the second price auction with 10. So the comparison is very important and it has a consequence, to understand that that comparison works only with the same number of bidders. Good. That is, if you believe that the bidders on eBay are risk neutral, it is a good idea to sell your item on their site, because eBay is like English ascending auction, and therefore as a seller you're best off putting if you believe that the buyers are risk neutral, then you are best off putting your item for sale on eBay. Online auctions are equivalent to English auctions. The above comparison is valid for both private and common value cases and also for intermediate values. However, if bidders are risk averse, then the first price auction, in certain scenarios, independent valuation, etc., yields the seller higher revenue than the second price auction, opposite to what we said. Why? Because in the second price auction, it doesn't matter if you have risk neutral bidders or risk averse or risk lovers. But if you are in the first price auction, risk averse bidders bid more aggressive. They raise their bids, and the seller, if he believes that he is confronting with risk averse bidders, should prefer under these circumstances should prefer first price auction. The reason is that bidders bid more aggressive in the former auction, namely in the first price auction. Also, there's another thing. If the seller is risk averse and the bidders are risk neutral, again, the seller may benefit more in the first price auction than in the second price auction. So either the bidders are risk averse or the seller risk averse, first price auction outperform second price auction. If we are talking about risk neutrality, the opposite is correct. Now, problem with the English auction. Entry returns. That's the big problem. Okay. As it is stated above, the English auction in many circumstances is the best auction for the seller. Okay? We're talking about risk neutral bidders. However, this result is based on the assumption that the same number of bidders participate in all auctions. Under comparison, in reality, the English auction may deter entry. For instance, in the auctions for mobile phone licenses, non-incumbent firms with even a small disadvantage will see no point entering an open ascending auction. Let me explain. Suppose I'm a newcomer, okay? I'm not an incumbent firm. And I want to participate in auction, the government auction of frequencies in different locations. And there is an incumbent firm, and we're talking about an open ascending auction, English auction. And then whatever I'll bid, I'll bid, I don't know, $1 million, you'll bid $1,000,001. So whatever, if you are more experienced, you have, maybe better technology, I don't have the same advantage as you, there's no point for me to participate in an English auction, because typically whatever I will bid, you'll bid one more. And therefore I will not participate. Let me tell you something. I was myself a consultant in several big auctions, like frequencies or long distance auctions at the time. Long distance phone calls at the time. And then to prepare for an auction, for instance, the group that hired me spent in 1994, I think, okay, now we're talking about 25, 26 years ago, they spent, to prepare for the auction, about $4 million. You have to hire economists, you have to hire lawyers, you have to hire accountants, you have to hire game theorists. It's a long process to understand and exactly, and to think strategically how to bid, what to do, etc., etc. So, in such a case, today's, I'm sure it's much more than $4 million to prepare. So if I know that I have no advantage or my chance is very small that I'll win the auction, I don't want to come. I don't want to spend that money, time, whatever. So that is the problem. English auction deters entry because whatever, if it's open, whatever I do, they can do a little bit better. Okay. So what? Preparation for a large-scale auction is usually quite costly, and whatever sensible bid a non-incumbent firm makes, it is likely that an incumbent firm will outbid it. A non-incumbent firm may be trapped into winner's curse if she wins in an English auction against incumbent firms. Okay, if, the incumbent has a better technology, knows the market, doesn't make mistakes, he learns a lot in the market, and I outbid him and win, probably I'm going to lose money. Or I'm not going to do, maybe the investment, I may not lose money, but maybe the investment that I make, to buy the license, to purchase a license, I have to bid so much that I will not even cover my alternative opportunities. So in that case, I may be trapped into, we'll talk about it, winner's curse. That I win, but I shouldn't win. It's better that I would not win. Okay. Or, we'll talk about it later. Now, to ease this problem, Klemperer in 1998 suggested to actually make a combination of auctions. He called it Anglo-Dutch auction. The Dutch really, since it's equivalent to a first price auction, replaces the first price auction. Actually, it should be English first price auction. For example, Anglo-Dutch auction for 3 licenses. Suppose the government want to sell licenses for frequencies in different locations, and they want 3 firms to get the license. Okay, the competition between 3. What is suggested is the following. First run, so for example, Anglo-Dutch auction with 3 licenses, the price rises continuously until, says, 5 bidder remains, the English stage. What does it mean? Let's say 10 competitors for that licensing, for that licenses. So then start with ascending English auction. That's the best for the seller. Good, let's start with it. However, choose not the 3 that you want, choose 5. The 3 later on will be selected from the 5. How to choose the 5? You start raising the bid until someone said, I'm out. We left with 9. We continue to raise. Another one says, out. We left with 8. Until we left with 5. Let's say that the price that cleared the market at 5, let's say that only 5 remain still competing, is $10 million. Okay? So then we run a first price sealed bid auction, where the minimum price that you can quote is the last price of the English auction, which was, say, the $10 million. So you cannot bid below that. And then now, why this is an advantage? Because now, as even if I am not, I have a little bit disadvantage, but a little bit, I may win. Why? Because if an incumbent firm may think that I'm not going to bid that much, they are going maybe to lower their price, and then maybe I have a chance to be a winner. You see, when it's not ascending, and where the incumbent firms cannot hear what or cannot observe what I did, then I have a chance. So let's continue. Then these 5 bidders submit sealed bids with a minimum price which is the one clear the English stage. The highest 3 bidders win the license, and each pays the third highest price. So out of the 3, let's say one bid 25 million, the other one 27 million, the other one 28 million, and all the others below. So all these 3 are the winners, but they pay 25, the lowest of the 3. Here, weak bidders, the one that are not incumbent, have incentives to enter such auctions since they have a reasonable chance to win a sealed bid competition if they can be among the 5 winners of the English stage. By the way, he did it in the UK. It works very nicely. While the others that just use the English auction, for instance, in Switzerland, I'm talking about now the 3rd generation. In Switzerland, I think that if I'm not sure that I remember well the numbers, but I think in the UK per capita the government got 600 euro, even though there is a pound, just translating to euro, 600 pound per capita for, if you divide the amount that these companies put, dividing by the number of users, you get about 600 euro per capita. And in Switzerland, they run just English auction, and many did not come to compete, and they got, I think, only 20 euro per capita, if I remember well. It's of that magnitude. So you have to design an auction. You have to be experienced. You have to think of it, the incentives. So while the English auction is better than first price auction or second price sealed bid auction, it deters entry. And therefore, you may get very few entrants that may even collude or not collude, but the competition is not strong there. And therefore, the government may end up selling licenses for extremely low prices, as happened in Europe. Collusion. And open ascending auctions are subject to sophisticated collusion using sometimes signals. It is quite amazing that over 80% of the violations of the antitrust law are in auctions. 80%, I think it's more like 84%. Okay? So what's going on there? For instance, I can collude with you I'm not talking to you. So it looks illegal, as if it is legal. What do? Every time that you win, I will reduce next time. Let's say we compete about selling some items to buyers. So, and we participate in auctions, okay, to attract the buyers. So if you reduce the price below me, and just to deter me, then 10 times, I will do it 10 times to you. At a certain point, we'll understand that it doesn't worthwhile for us to do it. And then we reach some equilibrium where we split the market somehow. So I can signal you by lowering my price or by hiring the price. that to allow you to win. So this kind of collusion, which actually are illegal, but looks as if we didn't talk to each other. Let me give you an example. This is a great example. In Germany, in 1999, 10 blocks of spectrums were sold by an open ascending auction. English. The rule was the following. Any new bid on every block, so you can bid on every block, except for the initial bid, should be higher by at least 10% than previous bid. And there were two serious companies were bidding in this auction. One was T-Mobile, the other one was Manassan, that was acquired, I think, by Vodafone. Okay, but in any case, let me repeat. There are 10 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The blocks are different locations in Germany. And you compete for licensing, for a license of frequencies, okay? And if I bid, let's say, 1 million, and you want to outbid me, you have to put at least 10% higher, to put 1,100,000. And so if I outbid you every time, I should raise your bid by 10% at least. That was the rule, okay? Ascending auction. So first of all, not too many compete. Because of the ascending auction, you got very few. The main two were, the first one, Mannesmann, put first a bid per megahertz of 18.18 Deutsche Mark before the euro on the first 5 blocks. And they put 20 million Deutsche Mark in the second 5 block. Wow, what is this number, 18.18? I mean, it's a crazy number. Who bids like this? 20 million, I understand. By the way, in the newspaper, they predicted that auction will generate billions of dollars, Deutsche Marks to Germany, to the government. So they put 18.18 for all the 5. So for each one of the 5, I don't remember. Let's say each of the 5, 18.18, 18.18, etc. And for the other 5, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Then T-Mobile looks at the price and says, what is 18.18? What they're trying to tell us? If we raise by 10% 18.18, if you raise it by 10%, you get 20. They're trying to signal us that on the 20 of the 5-second blocks, okay, that they bid 20, don't overbid them. And leave it like this. Bid only on the 5 that they put 18.18. So in that case, we, Mannesmann, T-Mobile, the competitors, will get the first 5 by 20. They are not going to outbid me because I will outbid them. And then by that case, each one of them will get 5 blocks for 20 million each. The second company, T-Mobile, interpreted the first bid of 18.18 million as an offer by Mannesmann. Live and let live. Namely, raise our bid of 18.18 million on the first 5 blocks by 10% and bid 20 million, but do not outbid us, and bid 20 million for the first one, but do not outbid us on the second 5 blocks where we put 20. So each one will get 5 blocks for 20 each. T-Mobile understood the signal well, and indeed they won the first 5 blocks for 20 million Deutsche Mark, while Mannesmann won the second 5 blocks also for the same price. As far as I remember, they tried to go to the court, but they didn't have it was not really, they didn't talk to each other. I don't think that they convinced the court. And so, such an auction went up with I mean, with a very bad outcome to the government. They thought of getting billions of billions. They got from each 5, so they got 200 million, which is much, much less than expected to do. So, in English, if you are in an English auction, if you are very sophisticated, you can send very sophisticated, sometimes signals to the others, and therefore split the market to avoid competition. It's against, in the US, it is against the antitrust law. But I think in Germany at that time, they had to accept it. Okay. I want to talk now about common value and the winner skills. A well-known feature, we mentioned it several times, a well-known feature of auctions with common values is the winner skills. The bidders have the same value, but they do not know this common value. For example, when licenses to drill for oil in the undersea tract are put on auction, the amount of oil tracked is the same for everybody, every bidder. But the buyer's estimates of how much oil is likely to be in a tract will depend on their differing geological surveys. Okay? Such surveys are not only expensive, they are also very unreliable. Some buyers will therefore receive optimistic surveys and others will receive pessimistic surveys. Let me just explain that. I don't know the value. You don't know the value. Actually, it's a common value. We have the same value. Why? Because the value for each one of us is the number of barrels that we can extract times the price of a barrel in the market. It's very simple. Okay, so now what do I do? I'm an oil company. So I send my expert. I have some expert. I send my expert. I say, go to Alaska, and where they lease some trucks, and I tell that guy, check for me, come up with an estimate. Okay, what he or she do is they go there with simple equipment. They cannot bring the heavy equipment that the cost is huge to bring it. You don't bring it before you win. So they do all kind of experiments, all the type of soil. They look around what happens in adjacent areas. They look on the climate, the type of soil. I don't know what they do. But eventually they come and say, look, 5 million barrels. I write myself 5 million. Let's say that the oil price is now 40. So I know 5 million times 40, the value of that field is 200 million. Okay? So then I should, by the way, if I win, I don't want to pay the 200 million, I should reduce it. But let's say my willingness to pay at most 200 million. Now your expert comes to you and say, no, there are 10 million. Wow, 10 million, in that case your valuation is 400 million. And you have to bid based on what your expert is telling you. So I'm going to bid according to the information I got from my expert. And there are like 20 companies, typically like 20, 25 companies compete. They are getting a lot of, each one of them get an estimate, okay? And based on that, they bid, okay? So now, before they bid, what do you think is the very close to the real value? Okay? So some are very optimistic, shoot up. Some of them are very pessimistic. Some of them are less pessimistic, more optimistic. When you look on the average is a very good estimator on for the real or the actual value of the oil tract. If I would know what all the experts have told all the companies, I would take simply the average. I will know that is probably very close to the true value. But I know only my expert. And each company knows the valuation of their experts. So remember, the average is the right one, very close to the right one, the true one. Who wins? Let's say I got a very optimistic valuation, 400 million. That's the value of that land. I know others compete with me, so I'll reduce it, let's say, by 10%. I'll make 40 million, maybe by 15%. So I'll reduce it, but not much, because if I reduce it by much, maybe I will not win. So I have the tension. If I reduce it too much, I may not win. If I reduce it a little bit, I may win, but not win much. But in any event, that is more or less the conflict. But what happens? Who wins? If everyone, let's say that everyone reduces they put a bid which is 15% less than their values, what the expert told them. Who will win? The one with the most optimistic valuation. And typically, on many cases, 15% of the highest may be still above the average. If it's still above the average, you lose money, because the average is the true one. That's the point. The winner is the one who is the very optimistic one. And even if you go below this average, it may be that you go below the average by very little. And then the cost of bringing all the heavy equipment or so will be very, very costly. You're not going to make money. Or if you make money, it may not justify your investment. You may do the investment in some other things, even maybe in the market, and make more. So this is the winner's curse. So let's read it together. Who will win the auction? The announcement that the bidder has won the object should lead to a decrease in his estimate. In this sense, winning brings bad news. That's the curse. Why? All of a sudden, I hear that I'm the highest one. So that means that I overpaid, I overbid, I shoot too high. Okay, so that from that point of view, it's on one hand it's good news, I won it, but 25 other lost it. Their experts are not kids. They know what they're doing. Maybe I overshoot. Okay, so by knowing that I'm the winner, I'm getting some bad news that I overpaid. For instance, if Bob tricked his survey estimation of the value of the tract as a private value, then he will win whenever his survey is the most optimistic. But when Bob realizes that his winning the auction implies that all other surveys are more pessimistic than his, he will curse his bad luck at winning. He say, wow. Okay? Let me tell you a story. Before that, I'll continue. If he had known at the outset that all the other surveys were more pessimistic than his, he would not have bid so high. A failure to ignore this effect and take it fully into account when bidders decide on their bidding strategy may result with the outcome that the winner pays more than the true value, or even if he pays a little bit less than the true value, it may not justify the big investment. This happens often in practice. In the example above, suppose that many oil companies compete for the drilling rights to a certain tract of land. Each company obtains an estimate of the value of this tract, the number of oil barrels that can be extracted, times the oil price. That's the value. On average, these estimates are likely to be close to the true value. On average, but nobody can compute the average because you don't know what is the estimates of all your competitors. But every firm observes only its estimate and not that of the other companies. Given the difficulty in estimating the amount of oil underground, the estimates may vary substantially. Even if companies bid, say, 15% below their estimate, in the presence of many companies, it is likely that the firm whose expert provides the highest estimate wins the auctions but loses money. I want to give you an example. I have a friend in actually Stanford University, and his hobby was the weekend to go to look for some houses and maybe to renovate them and then to sell them. So there was one house for foreclosure, and he, together with 150 realtors, he was not a realtor, he was a professor, but that was his hobby. He makes good money, by the way. But then foreclosure, a lot of people went there. And he put a bid as everyone else, and on Monday morning, that was in the weekend, on Monday morning he got a phone call and they told him, Mr. This and this, we are very happy to tell you that you won the auction. His first reaction was say, oh my God, probably I overpaid. Okay? If 150 realtors were there and they bid whatever, who am I to win the auction? Probably I overbid, and indeed, he tried to renovate, but he lost money on that house. So you have to be very careful. Let me say it in a second. The news that your estimate is the highest is worse the larger is the number of competitors. Thus, the magnitude of the winner's scarce increases with the number of bidders in the auction. Now, the conclusion. Bidder need to shade their bid well below their initial estimates to avoid the winner's curse. If you really reduce it a lot, your chance of winning is much smaller, but if you win, you don't lose money. That's the conclusion. Okay? So now I want to give you some experimental evidence about the winner's curse for, few of them. And one thing that I did quite a bit, I never failed. Actually, I was not first to do it. I learned it by Paul Milgrom that came to Israel in early 1980s. And there were in the audience only professors of game theory. Okay, now I'll tell you what is the experiment. A jar full of coins was auctioned off. Now it was here MBA students of Boston University. They also did it in Northwestern University later. Unknown to the students, each jar had $8 worth of coins. Okay, I'm telling you, they didn't know this. Students submitted sealed bids and were told that the auction is a first price one. So each one they didn't know how much, but they had to put the bid to buy the jar full of the jar. Obviously, the value is zero except for the money inside. Namely, the higher bidder would receive the money in the jar minus his or her bid. A total of 48 auctions were conducted, 4 in each of 12 classes. No feedback was provided until the entire experiment was completed. Students also asked, in addition, to estimate the value of the jar. So they asked them 2 things to do. What do you think you have there? And then how much you want to bid for this? So 2 things. How much you really think, and obviously first price auction you have to bid below that. Okay? Thank you. Now, I tell you the result. The mean estimate of the value of the jars was $5.13. What does it mean? When each one, you took every estimate of every student divided by the number of students, they believed that on average in the jar there is only $5.13. They didn't know that there is $8 there. So, which clearly works against the winner's curse. Okay, so they thought that the value is very, very small, relatively very small. This low value suggests that students were risk averse. Okay, I don't know, I don't want to lose, I'll put, some of them obviously put high, some of them low, but most of them put low. As you can see, the average became 5.13. Nevertheless, the mean winning bids, because they run it many times, how many times? 48 times, 48 auction. The winning bid on average was $10.01. It's enough that one of the students put $15. Or believed that the jar has $15 and he put $10 because he wanted to make $5 and therefore he paid $10. So you see, the average estimate was $5.13. However, the winning bid on average was $10.01. So quite amazing. Obviously, the one that win lost $2.01 because the value there was $8. Field data. This is an experiment one. Field data. Evidence on bidding for oil and gas drilling rights. Consider the Gulf of Mexico leases of 1,223 leases issued between 1954 and 1969. So there were 1,223 auctions during these years for different tracts of oil. Now I tell you what happens. First, firm suffers an average present value loss of $192,000 per lease, using 12.5% discount because it takes time until they took it. So if you get the same money later in the years, it was less. So you have to take an average with a discount rate. They assumed 12.5%. It was not that high at that time. 62% of all leases were dry. Okay, so but the winners got zero there. They lost money because it was dry, no oil. 62%. Consequently, the winners had no revenues at all. 16% of all leases were unprofitable, although some production occurred. So they found some oil, but it was not enough to justify the investment, and they made a loss. The other 22% of all leases were profitable, and this lease earned only about 18.74 rate of return. It looks good, but if you remember that when you are out only 22, so 22 out of 100 in making it, it's not much to justify such an investment. This result appeared to reflect excessive enthusiasm for the amount of oil likely to be found. You believe that, so you think that there is much more than it is there, and data surprisingly suggests that bidders make systematic errors. The rationality assumption in economics turns out to be inconsistent with bidder behaviors in this case. Finally, for the auctions, I want to give you a very nice auction where you can make money. Still, some sites still have it. And it's called the max bid auction. For fun, but I can tell you, I'm one of the founders of an online auction that used to be in India, Australia, and Israel. We sold it, and in South Africa. We sold it. Now it is it functions in South Africa, and there we use that max bid auction just to make more attraction to the site. Okay, it was like this. So I give you an example. A car of a value of $35,000 is put for sale in the following auction. So first of all, the value of the car is $35,000. Let's assume if it's not in the US, if you don't like the car, you get $35,000. A bid is not allowed to exceed $5,000. So first of all, if you you cannot put a bid higher than $5,000. So if you win, you pay at most $5,000 and you get $35,000. Okay? A bidder is allowed to put as many bids as he or she wishes. But once the auction receives total of 4,000 bid, we stop it. It terminates. Now, who is the winner? How it works? Because everyone will put 5,000. Okay, if I select it, then I'll pay. Then I'll get 35,000. Except that, first of all, we are not crazy to give you $35,000 when you put 5,000. So bid costs money. Okay, later on maybe we mention it. A bid costs $10. So if I close the auctions once I have 4,000 bids, then I can say that I raised 40,000. Okay, and actually 40,000 10 times 4,000. And actually the cost for me is 35, but I'm also making close to $5,000 from the bids. So I'm getting like $10,000. Good for me. It's not really true that the auction site making 10,000 because there are affiliates, you have to pay them, but you make money. And it's very easy to operate it. They put everything is done automatically. And then some winner comes, well, where do you live? In Florida. Okay, go to that dealer, and you call the dealer, you give the dealer your credit card, and that dealer gives the car to the winner. So it's very easy. You need probably one person to operate it. That's why sometimes it appears in several places. Not only for cars, it was at that time plasma TV and other things that were quite expensive. Okay, so who is the winner? The winner is the bidder who puts the highest unique bid and pays this bid. Let me explain. Suppose that I start from the top. I said, how many bids 5,000? If nobody bids 5,000, I go down to 4,999. If only one bids 5,000, he or she is the winner. If two or more put 5,000, they bust. They don't get anything. And I start going down to 4,999. If there's only one, he's the winner. No one, I go down by one. Okay? More than one, they bust. They're out. Now, everyone can put as many bids as he or she wants. Okay? Fine. So, as an example, if two or more bids equal 5,000, then these bids are crossed out. If then two bids or more bids 4,999, these bids too are crossed out. If there's only one bid of 4,998, then the bidder who placed these bids wins the car and gets $35,000 value of a car and pays 4,999. Good deal for him. The seller is not a philanthropist and he charges $10 per bid. Every bidder can buy as many bids as he or she wishes. Furthermore, a bidder who wishes to buy a number of bids has the right to do so only if he can place all of them. Let's say I want to buy 100 bids, okay, and pay $4,000. And suppose that when I do it, there are already almost all the 4,000 except 10 bids left. So I can bid only 10. I can say, if I want. If I want, I can say either you take all my 400 or I'm out totally. Okay. So he can place all of them, namely when adding his bids to the existing bids, the total number of bids does not exceed 4,000. Okay? So the seller, furthermore, a bidder who wishes to buy a number of bids has the right to do so only if he can place all of them. Okay? So I will put it only if I can place all of them. Okay. The seller guarantees to extract almost 45,000, as I said. $10 times 4,000 bids, 40,000, plus the bid which is close to 5,000, 45,000. And the net around $10,000. We claim that a bidder, if wins the car, will pay substantially less than $35,000. How come? So actually, when we did it, we didn't realize that after a while, that the same guy, actually accountant from Johannesburg, was winning almost every week. So we didn't want to make it not fair. Not that we didn't lose anything, but the bidders, they didn't know what is a good strategy. And therefore they bought all kind of, they put all kind of bids and pay money for the bids. And there was one that consistently was winning. Then we realized, we were not aware of it. Then we realized what is actually, for instance, a good and optimal strategy. How? I tell you. Remember, 4,000 bids. I'm going to read it in a second. But first, let me talk to you. We have 4,000 bids. Okay? If I buy the highest 2001 bids, what is this? I divide the 4,000 by 2. I have 2,000 plus 1. And I capture all the 2001 bids. So I start 3,000 from the 3,000 I take. 3,001, 3,002, 3,003, blah, 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 until 5,000. It's exactly 2,001 bids. Then I must win. Why? I'm occupying all the 2001 highest bidders. Highest bids. You can... How many left? 1,999. If you put a bid in the range where I put, you bust me. But how many times you can bust me? At most 1,999. So for sure I end up winning the car. That's what the guy did. He put the highest 2001. So he actually, in South Africa, you could not, if you didn't want, you could not, you were able not to take the car but to get the money instead. So he got a lot of money. Every time he pays like 4,000, 5,000 and got a car of 35,000 or the equivalent. And that was quite amazing. So when we did it, then we realized it, we made a stop. And then we put another constraint. We said you cannot put more than 50 bids or 100 bids. I don't remember. Then it was nice. Everything looks better. And then after a while, we realized that there are syndicates that getting together and making syndicates so that they will collect the 2001 from this group, from this person, everyone was bidding the maximum, so that the total was 2001, and continue to win, in which case we decided to stop it. Okay, so how? Solution. Place 2001 consecutive bids from top down from $5,000 to $3,000. And you ensure your win. By the way, if there are already more than, let's say, 2,000 bid or more, and you cannot place the 2001, you cannot place the 2001 bid, you can stay out if you wish. You say, I'm out. I don't put anything. I don't participate in this auction. The other 1,999, remember, this plus this is 4,000. So if I took the 2001 highest bids, you left with 1,999, you cannot win. You can bust me in how many times? 1,000 at most, 1,999. But then I will be left with at least 2 non-bust highest bid. So bids of the other bidders cannot cover all your bids, and you guarantee to have the unique highest bid. Your cost is $20,000 for the 2001 bids, plus the winning bid, about 5,000, let's say. So it's about 25,000. That's your investment. You get 35,000 back. By the way, you have still today sites of max bid. It's called max bid. Sometimes if you want to make it to be more aggressive, you do it with what we call the minimum price. This is, it makes you make a little bit less, but it is crazy. I tell you how it goes. You put bids, but the winner is the one with the lowest bid. Okay, not the highest, unique lowest. So you can put a bid of $1, $2, $3, $4, blah, blah, blah. And the one that is the unique lowest one, you go down, is the winner. So that for some reason, in that case, you make about 5,000 less because many will bid very low. Okay, and probably the unique one will be close to 0, close to 100 or whatever. So you make less, but it is more attractive and exciting to the bidders. You have also, I heard, few years back that somebody started with the minimum price bid. It's very easy to start it.